Behind the Shades.
I am Renee Suzanne, and I decided to become a dating coach because I really struggled with dating. I lost my partner, the father of my 4 children, back in the 90s. So I was a single mom with all these kiddos, working and taking care of the kids and the house and the dog and all the things. And it was really lonesome. And after a couple of years of this, I wanted to try again and get back out there and find someone. And it was really tough. It was the early 2000s. Online dating was still very fringe. And there just wasn't a whole lot of help out there for folks like me. I would, go to singles events. I tried a matchmaker. I tried to makeovers. I tried fix-ups. I tried going to dances at bars and just walking around my neighborhood with my dog. And it was just so not fun. So I started binging on self-help books, really. I was like, there has to be something I can do. I refused. I'm pretty stubborn. Just ask my husband. And I was like, I'm not giving up. I'm young and I really wanted someone to share my life with, and there must be a way that I can figure this out. So I started reading all the self-help books and doing all the things. And I just never gave up and learned everything I could. And eventually coaching did become a thing. And I hired a dating coach to help me and just fell in love with this field of coaching and being able to create the results you want in your own life, and especially in the area of love, where we are taught that it's supposed to just happen. Something has gone wrong. If this thing doesn't happen to you, it's just not in the cards. Like it's this magical thing that's supposed to happen to you or not. And I just refused to accept that. And I eventually was able to figure out how to date. And I found my husband on Tinder 6 years ago, and we've been happily married since then.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations on this is your second time being married, correct?
Yes.
Yes, perfect, perfect. Because I know for me, it's probably, I forget the year, but I was on dating apps probably for a few years. And I found it to be like this area where there was like high volume. There's so many people, right? And I can just imagine for women, because women tend to get a little bit more attention than men. And you're swiping, you're trying to figure it out. And then you run into a situation like you where you begin to think, is this really going to work for me? Am I really going to be able to figure it out? And then you try to, and this is probably one of the worst things that some people do. They look around and they say, I want this. I deserve this. And sometimes that prevents them from thinking, maybe you still have work to do to find the person that you're looking for. Did you reach a point in your life where there's a little bit of, I don't know this is going to work, but I want it so bad?
Oh, like every day. Yeah. Pretty much every day. I would get my heart broken and swear it off. And then a couple weeks later, I'd be like, I remember one time I was like literally sitting there in front of my computer, writing my new profile with a box of tissues next to me because I was still bawling about the last guy that broke my heart. And I was like, but I want to find somebody. And yeah, I really wanted to do this. And I do believe that we all deserve to have love. We want it and we deserve it. And there is often work to do, but you don't have to be perfect to have love. But the thing is, the person you're going to have it with isn't perfect either. So a lot of people, in the name of not settling, go completely the other way and set these impossible standards and keep themselves alone for years over it. And I honestly did some of that too. But I see, we all will have work to do for our whole lives. And I didn't have to become perfect to find love. I had to just kind of find somebody who had the qualities that mattered and let go of the things that didn't matter so much and be a little more open-minded. That's what my journey was.
It's like sometimes online anyway, since you're a dating coach and you may have seen it or come in contact with it, where there's like this running joke where women will say that I want a man that's 6 feet tall, 6 inches, six figures, and he's prepared for 6 hours of combat and argument.
Yeah, I call it like the three sixes: 6 foot tall, six figures, and six pack abs. Like there's something about that. Yeah, and you can want that stuff for sure. But what about the stuff that really makes you happy in a relationship? A lot of times we will put those things ahead of the things that actually matter when it comes to having a relationship. Oh, he has to be 6 feet tall and make six figures. He has to make me laugh. He has to know where all the good bars and restaurants are. We gotta, he has to like the theater. Like, why? Then you find that guy, but he's dating 6 other women. Are you happy? No.
I know for me, I found out the hard way because I had dating difficulty in my 20s. And I believe like a lot of men, because if I wanted to, let's say, take you out, I don't necessarily have the resources or the income to do so. Sure, we can go 50-50, but if I'm trying to impress the woman, I want to say, okay, you know what, Renee, we're going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to wear this. You're going to wear that. Because courting today or in the last 10 years is definitely different than courting, let's say, when my parents did it, where they just paid, right, 10 cents on the ferry, they went to the farmer's market and their husband was there. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Where for me now, what I realize is that I discovered, Terrain, what is it that you want from your partner? What are your negotiables? What are your non-negotiables? And when I was able to narrow that down, that's where I had better relationships, because I can say that this is what I'm looking for. For example, I'm looking for someone that is self-sufficient, someone that is able to take care of themselves, someone that shares some of maybe the same interest or similar interest, but doesn't have all of my hobbies. Like if I want to play, I don't do this, but let's say I want to play video games. If it's a non-negotiable, then I have to find someone that plays video games. I can't find Jane down the street and say, hey, Jane, you know what? You got to learn how to love video games because you have to be with me, and that's how it is. When you're working with your clients, do you find that some of them don't necessarily what they want from their partner and how they could maybe communicate, hey, this is what I want. Can you help me fulfill this?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you brought up is you have to know what the non-negotiables are. And maybe some things are negotiable and some things aren't. And you have to be, everything can't be a deal breaker. So your example about video games, if that is really a deal breaker for you, then it's a deal breaker for you. But everything can't be a deal breaker, or you're just never going to find anybody. So I like to call them like character-based must-haves. And I encourage for at least most of them to be character-based, like things like intelligent or kind or responsible. And then, hey, you could throw some video games in there if you want, but the six-pack abs and the six figures and 6 feet tall in video games, and he has to speak French and have a father who knows Portuguese and love playing Tetris at 3 a.m. And, come on. So you have to just know what the deal breakers are, the must-haves, and then be as open-minded as you can about the rest of it. So this is funny when you talked about the video games, because my husband, when he first started using the dating sites and apps, he's an avid skier and he really wanted to find somebody that would enjoy skiing with him. And so he tried putting that in his profile and then just couldn't find anybody and didn't get any dates for a couple months and was like, forget it. And went back to leaving it out as his profile. Ends up married to me, terrified of skiing. I tried it once. I'm amazed I didn't break anything. I'm glad I didn't die. And I was done skiing for life. But he didn't let that stop him from talking to me. We get married. I think we've been married a year or two. And he was like, hey, do you want to try skiing? And I was like, look, I'm terrified of skiing. But I'll try it. Will you just make sure I don't die? And he's like, sure. Turns out I love skiing. I just needed somebody to be patient with me and help me ski. So I get a lesson and he goes and skis the Black Diamonds, you know?
That's what happened to me in regards to road trips. I enjoy driving. I love to drive now. But when I first started to drive, let's say the first couple of years, I didn't care to drive to different cities or go to different places. It wasn't something I necessarily did. And I think part of the reason was because of finances. Where now, once I started to have someone that was more outgoing and you have that companionship, similar to your point, right? It's by myself, I didn't love it because there's other factors. But now I'm with someone together. I'm like, I kind of like this. I kind of love this. Is that something that could happen? Whereas it's like, I don't really know if I like this. But then when you meet the right person and you have that companion, now you're like, oh, I have a different perspective on this activity that maybe before I didn't really care for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I see it all the time because especially when you get a little older, you get a little set in your ways and you say, well, I like the theater and I like this, kind of food and I don't like that other stuff and that's weird and I don't want to try it and whatever. But sometimes when you meet somebody that you really like, all of a sudden, yeah, you know what? It's not so boring to watch a golf tournament or freeze your behind off at a football game because you're there with somebody that you really like and you're like, I can appreciate some things that maybe I wasn't open to a few years ago because it's all part of the deal. And then they do the same for you. Like my husband started taking ballroom dance because I was interested in dancing. Now he was never going to take ballroom dance, but I liked it. And now that's something that we enjoy together because I was interested in it. So it went both ways and we've done a lot of things like that.
So Renee, in regards to dating, because I know so many people struggle with this. It seems like you struggled with it a little bit. I struggled with it a little bit. What are some of the commonalities that you see with your clients that prevents them from finding a successful relationship?
I think a lot of times you can maybe speak to if you encountered this as a man, but I think women especially think that love should just happen to them and they don't want to try the apps or the dating sites or really have to do too much because they think it should just happen if it's in the cards for them and that just something's wrong if it doesn't happen. They shouldn't have to really put themselves out there or even really try that hard to find a partner. And I think that men are used to doing, more work in this area and tend to be a little more open to that. But women are just like, oh my God, I'm 35, I'm 40, I'm 50. I haven't met the right person. I guess it's just not going to happen. Whereas a guy I've seen, just go out there and find someone. He's like, yeah, so I'll go try to date.
I think from the male's perspective is that when it comes to like a serious long-term relationship or marriage and you want to include children, there's more of a time restriction on women.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Right. And then from the male's perspective is that how much do I want to invest in this person? Because dating is an investment. I invest in you, you invest with me, and then we come to a middle ground that lasts the test of time. And I think what a lot of men struggle with is they want a return on that investment sooner than later, meaning that I'm dating this girl for 6 months. What am I getting out of it? Did I have sex with her? Is this going somewhere? Is she someone that can uplift me? So there's a little bit of fear from the male's perspective because they don't want to, and I'm generalizing now, they don't want to spend the money, spend the time into this person knowing that what if this doesn't go anywhere? And I think with the women I deal with, they have the fear that, hey, what if this person doesn't become who they say they are? And now I've spent all these years with them. It didn't go anywhere after restart. But if I want to have children, 30, 35, 40, right? I think that's where the perspectives differ. I think it's both out of a sense of fear, just they're just fearful of different things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, time is the most precious commodity we have, both sexes. But especially with regard to children, there is a hard stop for women that men just don't have. So I can definitely see your point with that for sure. I also think that women just take things, I know men do too, but women take things so personally. Oh, I'm gonna get my heart broken. Oh, he ghosted me. Oh, like I have to take months and months off to heal from my last relationship. I don't see men doing that. I don't know if it's the sex drive or what it is, but a guy will get back out there pretty fast, and a woman will sit there and not date for 5 years.
I will agree with that because I believe that men are the more romantic of the two because we're the one
I
who give the
agree.
flowers, the gifts. But I think when it comes to having your heart broken, I think men are more conditioned because we get rejected more often. For
Hmm,
example,
yeah.
right? I can ask 100 girls out, 100 won't say yes, especially if it's going to be sexual related, right? If it's going to be a serious relationship, I will get a number of them saying yes. But if a woman goes up to 100 guys and say, "Hey, you want to go out?" 100 guys will say yes because
Not if
right.
you're me. No, no. That's a funny thing. Yeah, I was actually silly enough to ask some guys out. The guys you have to ask out are usually the guys they already know about you. They don't want to go out with you, or they would have asked you. So, in my experience, men like it when things are their idea. Uh, but that's real. But to your point, I was devastated about it. I asked a couple guys out, nowhere near as many as the average guy. I think I maybe asked like 3 or 4 guys out in my life and never did it again because it was so devastating to me. But guys, like you do that in a given week. Like you just got to get over it or you're never gonna find anyone, right? So to your point, rejection is baked in to the male experience of dating, and you just accept it and understand that that's part of the deal, and you just go on and you don't let it stop you.
Pretty much because we will back when I was like actively dating like that, it was probably I would say weekly. I would get a no,
Hmm.
right? And because it's not like I'm Matthew McConaughey or Brad Pitt or Denzel Washington, and I'm pretty sure even they've heard no, right?
Probably, yeah.
But it's built in, as you mentioned, and as we discussed, it's built into the dating experience because if I use like when I was on dating apps, like there's a point where one of my friends he would hold up his phone like this and he would just swipe. He wasn't even looking, right? He would just swipe and swipe and swipe. Like it was to the point where his thumb was becoming flat because he was swiping so often. But he wasn't getting match after match after match. He wasn't even getting 50% matches. Um, I would guess based on your experience as well as some of my friends who are women, they say at times the amount of matches they get or messages that they get, it could be overwhelming because there's so many. So the volume is different online, and then the volume is different in person because women in general don't necessarily ask a guy out. Some do, like you did, right? But it wasn't that many. Whereas me, if there's you and let's say 20 other people in a bar or a restaurant, I may ask out half, and half of them may say no, or even 75% of them may say no. And when you're helping your clients to understand what they want, how their dating experience is, are there tips that you could present to them that would help them to be as successful as possible when dating?
Yeah. I think that the best thing you can do is learn how to date. Just learn how to date and never take anything personally. Just don't take anything personally. You're going to find someone, you're going to get what you want. If you keep putting yourself out there on the dating sites, on the dating apps with a good profile, with good pictures, and you know what you want, and you keep showing up for that and learn how to navigate the dating process to understand who is up for the kind of experience you want, who is going to be a good bet on your investment, and who is not going to pan out. And those are the only people that get to stay in your life, are the ones that are wanting the things that you want. And you will certainly be successful if you learn these skills and if you don't give up.
You were successful in finding a relationship that ultimately led to the pinnacle of relationship, which is marriage. Were you were you surprised that you found your husband online? And if so, why?
I wasn't really like surprised. I mean, everyone's online, just everyone pretty much. If you're single, you're online now, especially. I think there are still more men than women on the dating sites and apps, with the exception of eHarmony. And so if you're a woman, just get on there. Your future husband, boyfriend, love interest, date, whatever you're looking for, he's on there. Guys are on there. There's no way you're not going to find someone on there if you learn how to do this. If he's single and looking, he is on a dating site or app.
What about the reputation that some of the online dating apps get, that it's just a part of hookup culture? Do you coach towards that as well?
Yeah, it's funny because I met my husband on Tinder, and just a couple of years before I met him, one of my friends really twisted my arm to get on Tinder because, I thought that's the hookup app, and she's like, no, really, I meet lots of guys on Tinder that are really nice. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. I just tried it just to shut her up. But the thing is, like, no one can make you have a hookup, right? You can write a profile, you can put some pictures on there that are not the kind of pictures that somebody who was looking for a hookup would put on there. No one can make you have a hookup. I mean, you probably don't want to go on, I don't know, Adults Are Us or whatever, like, but I mean, Tinder is pretty mainstream now. And I even think it might be the one time I read, I don't know if this is still accurate, but it's the #1 dating app for marriage. So don't be too quick to assume that a site is only for hookups. Nobody can make you have a hookup. If you write a profile that makes it clear that you're looking for a long-term connection, like the real deal, that kind of thing, you can't blame people for wanting hookups. There are people who want hookups everywhere. That's another thing I would say. Like, you can even go to church and there's some guy in there who wants to hook up with you. There's no guarantees that if you meet him here, he's going to be a great guy. And if you meet him over here, well, good luck with that. Like, there's good guys and hookup guys everywhere, and people want what they want. We can't stop them. What we can do is figure out, what do they want, and do we want that or not?
That's a good point that you raised, because some people will try to disregard it, not knowing that you can meet someone in the grocery store, church, museum, art gallery that wants to hook up. If the person wants to hook up, it's regardless of where they are, they're going to present that type of energy.
Yes.
And what do you think are some of the ways that people can distinguish between those who are just in it for a sexual experience and those who are in it for something more serious?
There are very good clues. So first of all, if you write a good profile that really, there is a way to say, I am looking for a long-term connection. I am, on this dating site, on this dating app, to find my partner, to find someone to share my life with. Hookup guy, well, he might read that and think, oh, she's pretty cute, I'll try anyway, right? It's not a guarantee. Then you look at his profile. Does his profile have a bunch of disclaimers in it? Like, oh, I just got out of a relationship. Oh, I'm working on my MBA and I travel a lot for work and I've got this and that going on. Oh, I'm just seeing what happens. I'm looking to, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. A lot of guys will tell you right out the gate, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I just got out of a relationship. Let's just hang out and see what happens. That kind of thing. That's not the guy who's looking to have you to bring him home to mama. That's the guy who's looking to play. So if he walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, you want the man who is going to invest in you. He's going to call you. He's going to plan dates ahead of time. He's going to want to show up well over time. And he's going to hang out long enough to where you're going to be able to tell if he is interested in you as a person or just interested in the gratification that he may be able to get from you. And then he can move on and get it from someone else if you are not up for that experience.
And one thing I'm going to add, and I'm going to reveal a few secrets right now to the ladies and the men out there. If the first date is someone saying that I can come back to your place,
no.
no. If the date can only start at 11 p.m. at night, no. Right? Be aware and don't feel that you can change someone, because there's times where I'll hear some women say, well, if I have sex with him on the first date, I'll change him. He'll be my knight in shining armor and he will be the one for me. And I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen out there, they don't change. Right, Renee? They don't change.
Yeah, that's a bad bet. That's a bad bet. Let him go and have sex with someone else on the first date. Unless you really want that and you're fine with whatever happens of that, which is don't date someone you want to change. The easiest dating hack ever is to start with someone who wants what you want. And changing somebody is so ridiculously impossibly hard. You are not going to change him just because you slept with him. How many other girls you think he slept with? Where is he? Well, knocking on your door. There you go. Learn from the obvious.
I remember watching online, there was this joke that there's only two things that are open after 10 p.m. That's burritos stores and legs. So ladies, so make sure you know what you're doing, because to Renee's point, no one's going to make you have a hookup, or no one's going to make you do these things. Use your better judgment. If it's something that you want to do, then own it as adults. If I want to hook up with someone, that is my choice. But I shouldn't complain about it the next day because it's something that I chose to do, right? And I think when it comes to dating, we need to take more responsibility and accountability, saying that maybe I'm not ready to date seriously right now. Maybe I need 3 months. Maybe I need 6 months. Maybe I need to fix myself, because you know that last person I dated, that girl, she did a number on me. She broke my heart. She put me in a situation and a position that I didn't see myself in my life. And I need to make sure that I'm recovered, because no one goes to the store to buy damaged items, right? We want to make sure that if we're going to enter the dating market, we're not perfect, but we're in a position to date successfully. Would you agree, Renee?
I do agree. And what I want to say about that is I got my heart broken just a couple of weeks before I met my husband. So yes, there is something to be said for taking responsibility, which I did, by the way. I sat down and I wrote down all of the ways I put myself in that position that got my heart broken. I really had a little come to Jesus with myself and said, Renee, you had no business dating that guy. He kept vanishing and coming back. You saw the writing on the wall. You did it anyway. You got to take responsibility here for what happened. But I will tell you that crossing days off a calendar for months or years doesn't equal taking responsibility and healing yourself to the point of being able to date responsibly for the results you want. Taking responsibility does. And I was able to do that in just a couple of weeks and got right back out there and met my husband. So do you need to take a pause sometimes? Absolutely. And I'm all for it, but please do something with that time. Learn to take responsibility, learn to look at yourself, not to beat yourself up and then say, oh my God, I do everything wrong. I'm such a disaster, but to be like, oh, I see where I made some choices that didn't serve me. I see where I put myself in a position where I allowed someone else to take advantage of me. And I closed my eyes to what was happening because I didn't want to see. I didn't ask questions that I probably should have because I didn't want to hear the answers. Things like that. Where did you do those things? And then when you see them, you just won't do them again.
What do you believe are some of the reasons that would prevent us from asking questions like the ones that you did to identify any potential red flags, or to at least narrow down our dating pool to make sure that we're not spending time in areas that we don't necessarily need to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest, most courageous act of self-love is to know what we want, and then to ask questions, ask those hard questions. You don't have to interrogate people, but I know for myself, the times that I didn't ask questions that I needed the answers to was because I kind of already knew the answer and I didn't think I wanted to hear it. And that is self-abandonment. It's kind of chickening out on yourself. And of course, things went the way that I knew they would in my heart already. I got dumped via text. I got, sort of dragged along in relationships that weren't going anywhere with men who weren't serious about me. But I didn't ask the questions. And when I didn't really listen to the answers. So were those guys like horrible, awful people? Maybe they weren't the best people in the world, but they weren't like lying, horrible, awful skimmers. They were just people who were trying to get what they wanted in the world. And I tolerated a situation that wasn't good for me, the situation that I knew wasn't going to work for me. And that's on me. But I learned not to do that anymore. And I'm glad that I did.
One of the hardest things that I had to go through was not asking questions, but being okay with the answer that I got. Because sometimes we know, to your point, that if I ask this question, she's going to tell me exactly what I'm expecting. But if I hear it now, it hurts so much more than me actually just living it in my mind. Is that what you experience as well?
Yeah. I mean, I remember asking a guy that I was dating, what did I say? Like, was something like, is this going anywhere? And he's like, well, and I had known that for a couple of weeks, but then I was like, oh, well, now I got to do something about it. And I didn't want to, which is why it took me so long to ask the question.
So as we close, Renee, what's some advice that you would want to give to the next generation of young men or women who are trying to date successfully, but they're having a difficult time finding what they want out of their partner?
Know what you want, and then please start with somebody who wants what you want. It is like going into the kitchen and all you have is cornflakes and some beef jerky, but you want to make an omelet. All right, you got to go to the darn store, or because it's not working with those items that you have on hand. You need eggs, you need some cheese probably, and you need a good omelet pan. If all you got is a cereal bowl and some beef jerky, you're going to have to start over. Like, that's what we do with dating. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we start with people. We let our hearts or our hormones lead us around. And you're like, oh, but I like this person. Oh, but they're so cute. Oh, they're so funny. This is the person I'm attracted to. And we bring them back home and try to make an omelet out of them. And they're beef jerky.